AI with Alex Merced.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced, your friendly neighborhood data lakehouse and AI guy. And in this video, what I want to do is talk about what is Apache Arrow. Okay, so there are several different Apache projects that have become the standards of how we handle data in the Lakehouse era. And essentially, the Lakehouse has become the standard of how we handle data in the AI era. So basically, this is all sort of tied into each other. But Apache Arrow, what it did is that it solved a different problem than how to store data. It handled the problem of how do we process data. Because what would happen is that, as we discussed in the past, that for analytics, you're ideally storing the data in a columnar format. So you store the data as columns versus rows. Now, most systems would decide to do this differently. And again, there's two times you need this sort of way of structuring the data. One, how you persist the data on disk. So basically how you store the data long-term. So that would be how you store it on your hard drive, your object storage, wherever you decide to store your data. And then how do you load it into memory? Okay, so essentially now you're doing a thing, and now I gotta take the data that I have stored on my hard drive, load it up and load it into the computer's memory in order to actually answer a question, to do some sort of processing job. Now, Apache Arrow solves that, because a lot of times what happens in processing data, you're pulling data from different sources. They may be columnar, but they do it in sort of different formats. So now you're having to what's called serialize and deserialize. So you're turning it into a thing, serialize, and then turning it and then undoing that over and over again. So that costs time. Okay, every time that I have to convert this block of information in this format to this format, it costs time, which slows down the processing of data, especially when you start talking about larger and larger amounts of data. Okay, so if all systems represented the data in memory the same way, you can have a lot of different benefits. You could reduce the amount of times you have to copy the data within memory. You can reduce how many times you actually have to move the data within memory and between systems, and how long it takes to move the data between systems. So again, it's not just how you represent data in memory, but how you transport it between systems and the memory between systems. There's a lot of different layers of this, but the idea is that Arrow basically handles this level of standardization, which then allows you to be able to store, because you're not making as many copies, you're able to store a lot more data in the same amount of memory, which means you can now work with larger data sets and process them quicker on less hardware. Okay, Apache Arrow was a creation that came out of the combined efforts of Wes McKinney, famous for being a creator of a very popular library in the name of called Pandas, and Jacques Nadeau, one of the co-founders of a company named Dremio, that's really done a lot regarding the data lakehouse. So that's what Apache Arrow is. There's a lot more to Apache Arrow. The Apache Arrow project has really expanded to a lot of different areas, a lot of different languages, but that's the general idea, is that it basically made us able to process data faster by saying, hey, let's just take columnar data and represent it the same way, so that we have to copy it less. And then let's also use that same thought process for how we transport the data, so that way we're also reducing the bottlenecks when the data moves across the network. With that, I'll leave it at that.
Learn more with books from books.alexmerced.com.